Welcome to another Indie Dev Showcase, highlighting the many indie games we play here on the channel. If you'd like to submit a game for a future video, please reach out. But otherwise, let's begin. We are kicking things off with Motordoom. What happens when you combine BMX stunt driving, shooting, and a pinch of metal and roguelike for good measure? It's a quite simple affair. There's demons trying to get you while you're doing your motocross or BMXing, and you must shoot and perform tricks in order to take them out. The footage you're seeing is taken from a demo of it and may not represent the current version of the game or the demo itself, but the rules are quite simple. As you perform tricks, this will build up your score. When you get enough score, you will level up, which will enable you to unlock different cards, which can give you new weapons, new benefits, and so on. Meanwhile, the enemies are going to be chasing you around, and you must deal with them before they get you. As you can see, you can also slow down time in order to deliver those extra special shots in the air. And as per fashion here, the longer you go, the more monstrous the demons get, and the harder it will become. This one is certainly doing a whole lot right out of the gate, and you're going to get quite familiar with kind of the Tony Hawk style of tricks and combos with shooting, slowdown, and leveling up. Admittedly, it was definitely a lot to take in. You see, you want to use the gamepad to make it easier for you to do all the tricks and moving, but it's definitely easier to use a keyboard and mouse to do the pinpoint shooting while you're in the air. This one definitely has a lot of potential. And I would say this is certainly going to be for someone who likes, again, like trick style, like extreme sports, and looking for one that's going to give you a lot of replayability and a lot of gunplay to go with it. We are slowing things down quite a bit with Curse of the Sea Rats. This is a Metroidvania that, in a way, feels reminiscent of The Secret of Nim. We play as a group of prisoners who are being transported to the colonies in the 1800s when a pirate witch curses the crew, turning them into actual mice and rats. They steal the captain's child, and it's up to us to earn our freedom back by Metroidvaniaing around to stop her. This one is admittedly going to be a little bit on the janky side. The problem is that the difficulty is both all over the place in terms of how much you lose when you die, and the fact that enemies can just kind of like hit you or knock you out even when you're trying to strike at them. The character that I played as, and you can choose from 4 different characters, she kind of felt the most overpowered as the only one with a ranged kind of special attack, which makes it a lot easier and safer to engage with enemies. The general movement and exploration was okay, but this is definitely one of those titles where it didn't quite feel like everything was coming together for it. I would say if you're really in the mood for a new Metroidvania and you've played all the other ones, this one could be worth a check, but it's definitely, I think, lacking in terms of the polish of some of the other ones that we've had a chance to play. We now go to God of Weapons. The footage you're seeing is taken from the demo and may not represent the current version of it. It was only a matter of time after Backpack Hero was released that we would see Bullet Heavens and other games try and copy the kind of backpack as your inventory / build motif. And this game does that quite simply. As you play, your weapons will be used automatically around you. Your job is to put in the correct weapons. Each one comes in a variety of shapes, sizes, and ways they can be positioned in your backpack, or chest in this case. Different weapons can also proc or gain bonuses based on other weapons nearby, or different types of weapons that you're currently using. After you've made your selection, you go into combat and you must survive enough minutes or seconds in order to move on to the next floor. All the while, enemies get more and more dangerous, and you'll do your best to dodge and deal with them, kind of in a Brotado style. I like the kind of interplay of the different weapons and items that can boost or create synergies. Now, with that said, The demo didn't really quite give us a good picture as to any kind of meta play, permanent or persistent unlocks, and advanced features, and the game did see a major update in January, which I have not had a chance to play. I would say this is definitely going to be for the Bullet Heaven fan, and if you enjoy the likes of Backpack Hero and looking for a more action-y take on it, then give this one a try. We have more action now with City of Beats. This is an action roguelite, where the music is your weapon, or your, I guess, warning of weapons. When rogue AI is threatening the city, you must use either beats, music, and a lot of pew-pewing in order to stop it. The kind of hook of this one is that enemy and your projectiles will all kind of move to the beat of the music. So music speeds up, your shots get faster, and at different punctuations of the music is when you'll get kind of audio cues for when attacks are coming and things like that. There is persistence in form of unlocking new passive benefits, raising your base stats, etc. And you'll have to do that whole rogueliting thing, as you'll go from node to node, choosing where you'll go next, and try not to die at the very end. I found things to be a little bit on the chaotic side. Because it focuses on audio cues more than visual, it means that it's very easy to be overwhelmed, and as someone with no real ear towards music, does make it extra hard in terms of trying to figure out where you're supposed to be going or getting those proper hints. The game, I would say, is a little bit on the simplistic side as well. This is not going to be an overly extended in terms of its roguelite progression or the number of ways that you can play it. It's a very chill game, and again, the music does fit the theme, obviously, really well. So, if you're looking for a musical theme roguelite, I would give this one a try, but if you're hoping for another Hades, another Enter the Gungeon, that level of sheer craziness when it comes to the shooting and the gunplay, then this beat may be a little lacking in that respect. And now we go to Arcana of Paradise. This is, well, a quite unusual game. A survival puzzle deck building RPG with a whole lot of puzzle to go with that. The story here is that a bunch of kids are trapped in a massive tower, and they are told that God and heaven are waiting for them if they can descend all the way down. Unfortunately, the tower is ever shifting, there's strange monsters and beings inside of it, and they must fight their way one floor at a time down. All the while making sure they keep enough food in order to survive each coming day. So for this one, you'll choose a pair of kids. Each kid can be grouped into a specific class. This determines what cards they have access to. The pair will descend down. You'll choose different paths to take that will have different events or points of interest. Now, the combat is a little bit on the weirder side. It's kind of real time with a twist of puzzle to go with it. You'll be able to play cards to deal with enemies, and cards can be flipped. This can affect the properties of them as well as the enemies themselves. If an enemy is about to attack, by playing a suitable defense card just before, you'll get a kind of super block, which will stun the enemy, enabling them to take more damage. You'll need to keep going down in order to unlock new events, as well as get bread cards, which again operate as your food. If you run out of food, something bad will happen. And of course, you'll need bread to also upgrade your kind of village at the top of the tower, which will unlock new features, benefits, and all that. As you keep going down, you'll also come into special story events that will require you to play specific cards in order to move by them. If you don't get past the kind of major ones, your expedition comes to an abrupt end, and you must kind of get back to it in order to try again. This one, as I said at the start, is not like any of the other deck builders or even RPGs we've played. Despite the fact that it is kind of built on randomly generated runs, there is a specific end to this one. You are supposed to get to the bottom of the tower, and there's multiple endings. it does feel a little bit restrictive at the start, both in terms of which kids are available, but also the amount of food and resources you have. You see, you'll run into enemies who may be strong or weak to either physical or magical attacks, and if your party is kind of both physical or both magical, you're going to have a rougher time. This one is kind of a hard one to recommend. Again, if you're looking for like a deck building roguelike, it's not quite that. If you're looking for like an RPG with a lot of progression and kind of growing in power, it's not that either. I would say if you're looking for a very different kind of game that sits in between those two, then you should at least give this one a check. For the last game of today's episode, we go to Ravenlok, a gorgeous looking action adventure. When we move into a new house with our mom and dad, we stumble across a magical device that transports us to the world of Ravenlok. Where an evil queen is threatening the people, we must become the chosen one and strike back while getting into a bunch of fights, solving puzzles, and collecting lots and lots of MacGuffins. So the gameplay here is going to be your standard action-adventure affair. Once you arrive in the strange world, you will go on a variety of quests, and you must fight your way through enemies while finding more and more upgrades, powers, and so on. As I said, the art style of this one is certainly phenomenal, and some of the areas within Ravenlok look gorgeous. Unfortunately, this is one of those cases where there's more style than there is substance. The combat is incredibly repetitive, with most enemies going down to just simple combos. Bosses don't really do anything, and it just felt like combat was there for combat's sake. If you're hoping for any over-elaborate or challenging puzzles or exploration, you're not going to find it with this one. And the beginning as a whole was very slow in terms of getting the player into the world and starting to see what the gameplay has to offer. This is one that I would say is more for a younger audience, or someone who's not familiar with action-adventure design, and is kind of looking for a good first-timer game in that category. If you're a hardcore Zelda fan or any kind of action-adventure and looking for one to test your skills, then Ravenlok is definitely not it. Which is a shame, because I think the world they build and the art style and aesthetics are perfect, but it just did not do enough to hold my interest to see more of where things go. So with that, we're going to wrap up the showcase here. I would like to thank all the games that did submit press keys or just general keys for me to look at. If you let me look at your game for a future stream and video, please reach out. And otherwise, have a great rest of your night. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and if you're interested in more in my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.